Cars are getting ready to take the green, which they just have.
And it's good to see that it's good to see that the pace car got back on pit road again.
Yeah, we'll have to see now. And much like yesterday, Owen Sheffer in that 1.8-liter Miata has a heck of a jump, but has nowhere to go since he's in the second row, and he's getting bottled up once again by those two SM5 cars. As they head down into turn one and now through turn two, Greg Obadia has maintained that overall first place position with David Jacobs second. Owen Sheffer is third. And once again, the battle starts between Brent Simonson and Mark Johnston. They are side by side through turn three. Simonson inches ahead on the exit of turn three, heading into the bottom half of the course. We then have Steve Hunt, Joel Gambino, and Chuck Edmondson as they head down the bottom half of the course on the rest of lap number one. And Greg Obadia can only be thinking that Greg Obadia was in a good position there with Owen Sheffer pushing him through turn one to keep the lead.
You are just not going to let up, are you?
Not going to let that one go at all.
Greg Obadia would never want me to stop talking about Greg Obadia.
Yeah, I talked to him last night after the meeting and apologized for calling him Greg Obadiah all year. He goes, yeah, I know, I heard it. Because I thought it was funny.
All right, well, Greg Obadiah goes, just kidding, crosses the start-finish stripe on the start of lap number two. He's got about a 6-car length lead already over David Jacobs, and about another 7 car lengths back to Owen Sheffer, who has already made a considerable gap between he and the second and third place ITA cars of Simonson and Johnston.
Well, that's a 2-second lead that Sheffer has over Simonson. The only other position change on the track, Chuck Edmondson got around Joel Gambino at the lower end to take over 7th.
There we go, and as they come out of turn three, heading down to the bottom half of the course, it is Greg Obadia, then David Jacobs in SM5, Owen Sheffer. Simonson has maintained his lead and control of second place in ITA over Mark Johnston. We then have that camouflage car, Steve Hunt, running fourth in ITA, Chuck Edmondson and Joel Gambino. So, anybody know any good Greg Obadia stories? It's all Obadia all the time here up at Summit Point Raceway.
And speaking of Obadia, here he comes around 10. About a 5-car length lead over David Jacobs. And about another 10-car lengths back to Owen Sheffer. And then Brent Simonson and Mark Johnston. That is the battle on the track now as Johnston pulls out the start-finish line, trying to pass Simonson as they head down the front stretch going to 1.
Yep, and as they head down now into the braking zone of turn 1, Johnston has about a quarter of a car length lead over Simonson, moves far to the inside, very much the same move that I saw Simonson making yesterday. And as they head out behind the trees, heading towards turn 2, we have Johnston to the right, driver's left, Simonson to the right. They are side by side into 3. They are side by side into 3. They are side by side out of 3 with Simonson drivers right, Johnston drivers left. Johnston, although he'll be on the outside of turn number 4, should have the line going into turn 5 and into the carousel.
Greg Obadia wins.
If Greg Obadia could see what was happening behind him, Greg Obadia would definitely enjoy that race.
Oh my. Some days are just like this.
It's a good thing that this is the last race of the year.
That's right. Hopefully memories are short.
Even Greg Obadia says he likes the fact that it's
And Greg Obadia now is losing a little bit of ground to Mark Jacobs. The lead was 1.138 seconds as they hit the start-finish line. Let's see what kind of lead he's got now. Down to 0.986 seconds. So Jacobs is closing in on Greg Obadia.
All right, look at this once again. Crossing the stripe. It is Brent Simonson and Mark Johnston. Mark Johnston motors this time right around Brent Simonson. He's actually a full car ahead, gets right around him. Yeah, we do have a standing yellow flag down at turn 1. Johnston made that pass, and it looks like Owen Sheffer, our leader in ITA, may have spun down at turn 1.
Whatever it was, it left some debris of some sort on the track, because that smoke that was caused by the spin just kind of hovered there.
All right, Bob, so coming through turn 2 and into turn 3, Owen Sheffer did spin. Simonson and Mark Johnston were side by side out of 2 heading into turn 3. Simonson gets past Johnson coming through turn 3. Our new leader in ITA, Brent Simonson. Johnston second. Owen Sheffer, our previous leader, is now running third.
Lots of action here at this particular race, Summit Point Motorsports Park. Brimtech and, of course, Racekeeper are our sponsors for the races this weekend.
This weekend and for the entire year, they are title sponsors for the March Series.
All right, here comes Greg Obadian, David Jacobs out of 10 down the front stretch. And let's see the difference. 0.8 of a second. So
yeah, and it's compressing down coming into turn 1. Greg Obadia should be worried that that David Jacobs is getting closer to Greg Obadia.
Okay, and here we got Simonson and Johnston down the front stretch across the start-finish line.
And once again, Johnston now is going to move to the inside, a late move to the inside into the braking zone. They are side by side onto the brakes into turn number 1. Johnston again moves a bit to the inside, but I believe this time he has locked Simonson out, unable to do the over-under. And as they come out of turn 2, out from behind the trees, heading into turn 3, Mark Johnston is your new leader in ITA. Simonson running second, and about 15 car lengths back is Owen Sheffer trying to get back into the game, into that race for the win in ITA.
Well, I'll tell you right now, we're running on lap number 4, 12 to go, and long way to go yet. And I think Johnson and Simonson are going to be swapping that spot pretty much for the next 12
I was going to say, yeah, for the entire rest of the race.
Well, I think it might come down to who has the good line in the turn number 1, because we've seen what happens. We've seen what happens when you shade too far to the inside. We've seen what happens when you get it right and you hold the driver out. And you know, I think it's going to be a question of racecraft.
All right, Obadia around turn 10 with David Jacobs about 5 car lengths back. And the time now, it's back up to 0.9 of a second. So they both ran their fastest lap. Obadia 1:23.8 and Jacobs 1:24.0.
Yeah, and that lead, it compresses down only to about 2.5 car lengths down in the braking zone.
All right,
so
here comes Simonson and Johnston. And Simonson's got about a 2 car length lead over Mark Johnston. They hit the line. That's 0.5 of a second behind. Johnston is the 4th place driver, Brent Simonson. Owen Sheffer is still 5th. Steve Hunt 6th, Chuck Edmondson rather is 7th. Joe Gambino 8th.
All right, and under braking and under compression down in the turn 1, Brent Simonson was able to close that gap up. He was right on the rear bumper of Mark Johnston as they come out of 2 and into turn 3. It is now up to, again, about a car length and a half gap between those 2 cars. Owen Sheffer, though, is on the march. He's trying to make up for that earlier mistake, and he is almost right back in this game for the lead in ITA.
You're right there, Greg. He's only 2.1 seconds back, and he is picking up time on him. That last lap, he picked up a full 2 seconds on Simonson.
Excellent, gentlemen. And Chris just stepped into the tower here again. What's happening, my friend?
Oh, not much. Just came up to watch my buddy Owen Sheffer run. I know he was having brake issues yesterday.
Yeah.
And even though he's got the championship locked up, he's going after that track record. You saw him pump the brakes when he went into turn 1 on the last one, so maybe he had some more issues this morning.
Let's hope not. Brake issues are never fun.
All right, Greg Obadia opening up a little bit more of a lead now. It's up to 1.1 seconds over David Jacobs in 2nd.
Already had 1 track record fall this morning in the Continental, so...
Oh, Chuck Moran did get that record.
Yes, he did.
By about 4 seconds. Or 4/10 of a second. I'm sorry. Yeah, about 4/10 of a second.
All right, and as they head down the front straight, Mark Johnston is extending his lead over Brent Simonson, but Owen Sheffer under braking now in the turn 1 is just 2 car lengths back of Brent Simonson. So Brent, although he wants to get up to that lead, he's going to have to start playing a little defensive with Owen Sheffer. as they come out of 2, heading down into turn 3. It is still in ITA. Mark Johnston, your leader. Simonson now only with a half a car length lead over Owen Scheffer with those 2 blue ITA Miatas heading through turn 3 and down into the carousel.
It's interesting. Scheffer seems to have kind of a feel for where Simonson is going and is making kind of a trailing move. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but he's kind of tracking him almost, looking to set him up for a pass at some point.
So either setting up for a pass or trying to stay in the draft as much as he can.
Well, he's a little far away for the draft, but he's certainly kind of he's mirroring Brett's moves, and that's interesting as far as where he's going to be able to pass him, possibly down in the talent section of the course.
All right, your leader's just
out of 10 right behind him, and I bet you he's going to draft down the straightaway and then pop out of turn 1.
That's probably good philosophy and good strategy. Look at there.
And there you go.
Exactly correct. Look at this. Drafting all the way down.
Yep, don't pop out too early.
Yep, there you go.
Don't want to drag race in the 1.
Oh, a bump.
So now the question is, does Scheffer go for the position, or does he try and push Simonson back up to Mark Johnston?
He just did that, and he split himself by about 2 car lengths, but Simonson's back up right behind Johnston going into 2.
Yeah, I think that with now 9 laps to go, still fairly early in this race, I think that is the play, is actually to work and keep up with Mark Johnston, even if it means pushing Simonson along and keeping him in that battle. That way, Johnston doesn't get away.
Well, he literally bumped him right just past start-finish, gave him a good solid shove, and moved him down the track a little bit.
a little bump drafting, Bob?
Yeah, sort of, no, but let's call it bump helping.
All right, so more importantly, let's check back in to see what Greg Obadia is doing in this race for the win.
Greg Obadia is happy with Greg Obadia.
Greg Obadia's got a 1.4 second, well, it's actually down to 1.338 second lead over second place David Jacobs now. So he's kind of maintaining that lead of about maybe 6 or 7 car lengths.
Now that should make Greg Obadia very happy.
I think Greg Obadia likes that lead.
I was going to suggest to Greg Obadia this morning that he at least make it look like he has to work for it by playing around in second place for just a little while.
Well, maybe
Greg Obadia didn't like that idea.
No.
Well, maybe they'll throw out the waving white flag. Here we go again down the front straight.
It's start finish. That seems to be a little much.
Given what we see in Spec Miata, I think that's
a different story, though. They allow those guys to bump. They don't allow these guys to bump.
Same car, and it's on a straightaway. I don't see a problem with it.
So he didn't hit him that hard.
Yeah.
I didn't say there was a problem with it. I just said that it's unusual for them to not do something about that.
Yeah, but and you can see the pace that Johnston is keeping now, because once they get out of turn 1 and turn 2, Johnston's able to stretch that lead back open to about 3 car lengths, and I think without the bump draft down the front straight, both Simonson and Owen Scheffer will be quite a bit further back.
I think you're absolutely correct, Greg, and we're about halfway through, so let's get race group 3. Attention in the pit and paddock, race group 3 to the grid. Spec Racer Fords, race group 3 to the grid.
All right, Greg Obadia, David Jacobs at the front of the pack. That lead now for Greg Obadia is now 2 seconds flat. I'm sure Greg Obadia is liking that.
Greg Obadia likes that.
Mark Johnson, Brett Simonson, Owen Scheffer. That is your race on the track. 3rd, 4th, 5th overall. Looks like Johnson's got about a 3-car length lead over Simonson, but Scheffer is right on Simonson's tail again this lap down the front stretch.
And he pushes him drastically up towards Johnson. He's out, Brett, out and around, gets Johnston in turn 1.
Well, we're going to have to see if he can hold him, because again, he made a move that he was very far to the inside, which is going to push him to the outside of turn 2, and this might be Johnson's chance to drive right back around. They are side by side heading now into turn 3. Simonson to the inside, Johnson to the outside, and Johnston once again drives right around the outside of Brent Simonson. And I think as they go down to the carousel, we're going to see no change in position from what we had last lap.
A lot of torque in that Nissan, and that's where I think where he's able to pull these guys out of those turns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, looking at this and looking at the way Simonson approached turn 1 many times yesterday, he's really coming down a little bit too far far to the inside, and he's allowing that over-under move.
Hey, gentlemen, back at the front of the pack, we've got a race brewing here. Greg Obadia ran a 1:25.4. David Jacobs a 1:23.9. That 2-second lead is now under a half a second.
Yeah, they are less than a half a car length apart as they head into turn number 2. And as they come out, Jacobs moves to the inside, a little bit too far back to make a move on, make a pass on Obadia. So it is still Obadia, then Jacobs with just a few inches between them as they head down to the bottom half of the course.
Greg Obadia doesn't like that.
All right, now heading down into turn 1 again. You see the same thing. Brent Simonson to the inside, Johnston to the outside with Sheffer trailing behind. And we'll see as they come out from behind the trees. It is side by side once again. Simonson driver's left, Johnston driver's right. Sheffer trying to push Simonson through. And as they come through turn 3, still side by side. It looks like Simonson had a nose up as they started heading down the hill.
Johnston was really close to putting 2 off the track there, but held it on and kind of pushed Brett over a little bit towards driver's left to keep that line.
To keep those wheels on the track. Again, I'm seeing the same thing lap after lap, and it's all a question of racecraft.
We have a change at the lead. David Jacobs got around Greg Obadia.
Greg Obadia is not going to like being in second. Greg Obadia is not comfortable being in second place, but as they come down into turn 1, it is David Jacobs still your leader. Greg Obadia wondering why Greg Obadia is not in the lead.
Greg Obadia looked like was pumping the brakes going into turn 1. Maybe he's having brake issues.
It could very well be, and he's been doing that since the beginning of the race. So that could very well be an issue. These SM5 cars have very large brakes. They also have the advantage of ABS as well, whereas our IT cars don't have ABS. Oh, and look at this coming down the front straight. Mark Johnston was able to maintain the lead. He gets defensive for the first time, and both Sheffer and Simonson attempt to make a pass on the outside.
Simonson's got him on the outside on turn 1. Don't know whether he's going to make it stick coming out.
Yeah, but again, he's got the long way around turns 1 and 2, and as they come out of turn 2, heading into turn 3, Simonson is completely ahead of both cars. But look at this. Sheffer makes an inside move. Simonson is your new leader in ITA, but both Sheffer and Johnston are side by side heading down into the carousel.
Sheffer pushed Simonson out in front of Johnston, and he cut over, basically shutting Johnston's run down going into 3, and be interesting to see how that comes out once those guys get back up around turn 10.
All right, leaders coming down by start-finish, Jacobs and Obadia, and they had to deal with the slower car of Chuck Edmondson as they put him a lap down, but Jacobs maintains the lead.
Yep, and as they go down into turn 1, Obadia did shade a bit to the inside, thought better of it, and as they head through turn 1 and 2, Jacobs is still your leader.
Oh, we are working lap 12, 4 laps to go, Bob.
And ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our second call for Race Group 3, Spec Racer Ford. Please get your cars to the grid. Spec Racer Ford, Race Group 3 to the grid.
All right, look at this as we come down the front straight. Johnston steps to the inside. Sheffer follows as they both try to get around Brent Simonson. Up, Sheffer moves, drops back in behind Simonson, but Johnston with a head of steam takes over the lead once again in ITA as they come out from behind the trees and head down towards turn 3. It is once again Johnston. However, Simonson being pushed once again by Schaefer is now side by side heading into turn 3. Johnston manages to muscle his way around both Miatas. He is your leader in ITA heading down into the bottom half of the course.
Schaefer seems to have dropped back a little bit from pushing Simonson into 3, and that allowed Johnston to just motor on past.
All right, your leaders out of 10. Jacobs and Obadia coming down the start-finish line. Obadia is trying to make a pass on the outside as they head down to 1.
And now he's moving over to the inside. Jacobs tried basically taking up, making the car as wide as possible. Wouldn't allow a pass to the outside, was trying to block the pass to the inside. But it looks like Greg Obadia, in Greg Obadia fashion, may have just retaken the overall lead. No, Jacobs is still your leader coming out of turn 2 into turn 3.
We lost a car here. We've got one coming in to the pit lane.
That is Joel Gambino in the number 31 Mazda ITA Mazda Miata.
All right, back into the paddock.
Simonson, Johnston, Schaefer coming down the front stretch. Again, this time Simonson's got about a 3-car length lead. Rob Johnson does actually, over Simonson and Sheffer as they still work together to try to pass Johnson for that spot.
Check that car 31 going back out onto the track. Apparently was checking something with the crew and then went back out.
All right, Bob, and as Sheffer was pushing Simonson up into turn 1, couldn't get them up close enough, and as they come out of turn 2 into turn 3, it is Mark Johnston taking an inside move, trying to get a little defensive coming in through turn 3, and Johnston is sideways, and he is 4 wheels off in the gravel on the outside of turn 3.
Wow.
With just 3 laps to go, that's going to allow both Simonson and Sheffer to get by, and I'm trying to get a word if Johnson was able to make it down the hill safely.
All right, down the front stretch here, Jacobs. Obadia pulls through the inside of the track at the start-finish line to try to pass Jacobs, heading down into 1. They are side by side.
All right, and as they head down into turn 1, Obadia gets right back behind Jacobs and does not attempt to pass. Now, going back to this ITA race, this is the exact same thing that happened yesterday about midway through the race where Johnston came through turn 3 and had the whole Drift King style going on there with his Nissan 240. Excellent drift car, allowing Simonson to get by. And as they come out of 10.
Well, look who's in first right now.
Yeah,
Like Sheffer.
Sheffer made it stick. Johnston just goes past Simonson, and it's a drag race down the track here.
Yeah, as they head down into turn 1, Sheffer taps his brakes, make sure he's got some. He is your leader in ITA. He's running 3rd overall. Johnston right behind, and Simonson could not hold off the straight line speed of that Nissan heading down the front straight. So Simonson is now 3rd in ITA.
Sheffer doing a very, very smart move of just sitting back there and pushing Simonson along, staying close enough, and then boom, halfway through the race, runs out in front.
Yeah. Now,
All right, your race leaders coming out of 10, Jacobs and Obadia. They will get the white flag this time by, signaling 1 lap to go. About a half a car length separating these cars as they hit the start-finish line.
all right, and as they head down into turn 1, Obadia moves to the inside. Jacobs is to the outside. Obadia does not back out this time, and he cleanly gets by Jacobs through turn 1, and we'll have to see if he can make that stick as they come out of 2.
Well, Jacobs didn't make that easy.
No, he did not, and as they come out of 2, heading into turn 3, they are side by side with Obadia to the inside, Jacobs to the outside. They are side by side coming through turn 3. It looks like Obadia is just nosed ahead heading down the hill.
Now, as they get into turn 4, they've got a back marker, the camouflage car. Hope they see it as they come up, and that could pick one or the other of them, depending upon where he picked the camouflage car ends up going into 5.
That's right.
ITA race, Owen Sheffer has about a 4-car length lead over Mark Johnston, who's trying to reel him in.
And Simonson, Mike, makes a late breaking move down into turn 1 to try and get past Mark Johnston for that 2nd place position in ITA. And as they come out of 2, heading towards turn 3, Johnston once again is able to hold off Simonson. And if things hold true, and let's see if Johnson can get through turn 3 safely. He gets a little wide once again, but does not.
All right, then here we go. Leaders coming down. Obadia has the lead coming out of 10, and he's going to win this race by about a car length and a half over David Jacobs.
So Greg Obadia is going to love that Greg Obadia just won that race, and Greg Obadia gets a checkered flag and gets...
Greg Obadia is going to like that checkered flag lap.
That's right. Greg Obadia will get Greg Obadia's checkered flag lap. That's excellent for Greg Obadia.
Greg Obadia approves this message.
All right.
Funded and financed by Greg Obadia.
All right, so our ITA leaders should be coming under the bridge as we speak. Let's see what happens as they come through turn 10. Is it still Owen Sheffer in the lead at ITA?
Certainly is. He's got about a 6-7 car length lead over Mark Johnston. Richard Simonson back about another car length and a half. That's how it's going to finish for ITA, as nobody is close enough to make any moves.
Sheffer's strategy of helping out Simon